Steve, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Harrison.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself, just to start off this episode, and a bit about Two Magpies?
Okay, so Two Magpies was a bakery set up in 2013 by a husband and wife team. Unfortunately, they didn't last. So I met Rebecca at the time, who was running the business 5 years on in 2018. At the time, I was chief exec of a small brewery in Suffolk, and I used to go there and get my coffee and my sweet treats. So I tried to sell the business for her because she wanted to sell it. Nobody was interested because you basically got a sole trader, effectively living above premise, small turnover. So I said, the only way you're going to do this is if you scale the business up. She didn't want to do that. So I then said, okay, I'd buy in. So I bought 50% of the business. And within 6 months, we've got 2 additional sites. And then basically have driven the growth to 10 sites now, central bakery. We've gone from about 450 grand turnover to, we'll do about 10 mil this year. Gone from 16 staff to 200 staff, give or take, it's 180 odd.
Amazing.
And then we have, I bought Rebecca out finally in 2023. So basically on the business.
Okay, incredible. What an incredible business feat. Where do you learn all these business skills? Did you go to university and study business, or do you just learn it on the job in your previous experiences?
Well, that's a good one, that actually, because one of the questions I was asked at a previous talk I was doing is about, are entrepreneurs born, or what's it about? So my background's corporate, so I did a degree in food science and management studies. I did a master's in business at Reading whilst I was also working. So I was doing distance learning, and then I go down there for lectures and what have you. And that gave me a better understanding. And then the rest is learnt whilst you're on the job. So I've had some really good teachers in my life, and I've learned from both bad and good experiences. So the corporate route was a good route. So I spent 7 years doing mergers and acquisitions. So you're parachuted into a site that's been loss-making, and then basically let's turn that business around. So it's actually quite fascinating because people get lost in the woods as opposed to just standing above it and seeing what's actually there and what can we do and what can't we do.
Yeah. Do you think you could have grown Two Magpies the way you did without your previous experience? Like if you just went straight in?
I'd like to say yes, because wherever I've worked, I've treated it as my own business, much to the annoyance of some of my bosses at times. But the reality is, if you don't treat it like that, you won't take the requisite risks, because it's about risk.
Yeah,
So
sure.
if you look at my house, I live in a very small end terrace house now. I had bigger houses, but basically you just pump all the money into the business. So you've got to be willing to lose everything.
Yeah,
So I've got
sure.
loans that are against my house. It's getting better now, and it's much better than what it was. But there are times when I 2 years I was paying myself £8,000 a year.
Really? Wow.
And you're basically, you're eating food from the cafe, and that's kind of how you're living, and you're working 7 days a week, and you're doing every job because you're growing.
No, they're amazing. Yeah, so many of the guests we've had on have said stuff like that, because obviously in the online world, you see entrepreneurs doing really well. It's like, oh, I made $1 million in my second week. But the reality is actually what you said there. You spend paying yourself barely anything every year. And
Yeah, and it depends what market you're in. If you're in a tech market, which is a completely different market, you'll get people who'll invest willy-nilly because of the fact that, it could be the next big TikTok or the next big whatever it might be.
Sure.
If you're bricks and mortar and you're B2C, it's boring. The returns are very low. This year we'll actually do better. This year we'll do about 7p in the pound net.
Yeah.
But we've been as low as 2p in the pound.
Okay, sure.
So you've got to sell a lot of croissants, a lot of sausage rolls, a lot of coffee to make it work.
Sure. Just before we dive into actually how you scale the business, can you just tell us a bit about what it looked like when you first bought the 50%, like what the revenue was doing, how many visitors the bakery had, stuff like that?
Yeah, it was a single shop with an extension at the back that basically had a very small bakery, small pastry section, a chef, and then you had the shop front. And, Southwold's a very key town because of the fact that it's on the coast, it's second homeowners. So you had a lot of London set that would come up there. So you could charge a premium for what was happening. But even at that stage, it was 450 when I joined, then 680 within the first year. And some of that was pushing the boundaries because, you know, when I was talking to Rebecca at the time, she's going, if we could produce more croissants, you know, we could sell them, you know, we could just keep selling and keep selling and keep selling, for example, viennoiserie as it's called. So upstairs, eventually Rebecca moved out and rented somewhere. So I basically converted the upstairs to production rooms. So I lined them out with the proper material, put all kit in there, freezers, etc. And that proved how far you could push the envelope.
Yeah,
At the
sure.
same time, because I joined and put money in, I bought a lease of a bakery in Aldborough. So I joined in end of August. By the end of September, we'd got Aldborough up and running as our second site. So we're feeding that from Southwold. And that was a bit tight because you've got what was a very small space. And I'm talking, you know, the length of your room, probably a small
Yeah.
space, producing all of this now for 2 shops. And, you know, I remember buying the first van and then employing the first driver and all those kind of things. And then my pension, because I'd done a corporate job, I'd got a reasonable pension. So I flipped my pension in what's called a SIP. So I bought a property from the East of England Co-op, which was an old co-op with a big car park. And that we made the third site, which opened by the Easter. I got the keys on December the 24th, I think. So by Easter, we'd opened that up. And we made that the central bakery feeding 3 sites. So to give you an idea of scale, you'd gone from, say, 450, 500,000 turnover, 16 staff, including part-timers, to 1.5 million, 1.6 million turnover, 40 staff, 45 staff. And then
Amazing.
out of you're probably on your talks about cash flow, you may or may not have, because that's like the lifeblood of a business. Have you got enough money to feed everything? Have you got enough money to pay for your suppliers? Have you got enough money for your wages? So through cash flow, because we were generating cash, we take it quicker. Obviously, we're taking it straight from the customer before we have to pay for the goods. I bought the assets of a company called Timber Hill Bakery in Norwich. And that was in early 20. And then COVID hit 6 weeks after buying that business. So we went from, at that stage, we'd got to about 2 mil turnover annualized, 60 staff, and Norwich is a good site. So Norwich at the time was doing about £16,000 a week. It went to £35 the week COVID hit.
Wow.
So it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. The advantage of corporate life is they teach you all sorts of things like business continuity, planning, what do you do, etc. So for business continuity, you know something's wrong because there's this mad thing that's coming towards you because people are talking about it. And there's been some deaths and it's not good news. And, you know, if you looked at Norwich, it was like tumbleweed because everybody just moved. They weren't coming out on the streets. So I basically laid everybody off on unpaid leave other than the few that we needed to keep the business running. That's before furlough came in. So as soon as furlough came in, I then put everybody on furlough and I did a daily update to all staff by email about what was happening, what the new rules were, etc. And I bought perspex just about prior to the announcement about they would allow one at a time into a shop. So we put perspex fences up,
Tough times. Yeah.
people walking in and out. We were sitting on a lot of stock at the time, so we were doing click and collect. So we changed our model to a click and collect because people wanted to click and collect. And we were selling everything. So we had sacks of flour, pallets of flour, because we'd obviously bought it in to make our bread. And we were then bagging it into 1 kilo bags and selling these 1 kilo bags. And then, we found some, you know, tins of this in the store. So we were selling that. We sold anything we could sell just to get cash. So it paid down the suppliers. And at the same time, as soon as we generated enough cash, brought more people back into the business. And that was also the making of our Darsham site, because up to that point, Darsham it's on the A12. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's between Lowestoft and Aldborough, if you like. But people, when they could come out to get their coffees, would sit in the car park with their windows down to talk to each other and have their coffee. And that became a memory. So actually, on the back of
Good
that,
timing, yeah.
yeah, great timing on the back of that. And that's pure luck. So there is always luck involved in it. It's not, I didn't plan for it to be like that. But Darsham then became a set for people to come and visit and have meetings and whatever. So it's actually worked out really well on the back of that. Post that, we then set up a bake school. because Rebecca was into baking. She didn't want to really manage the staff and manage the business. So she ran the bake school. I then was pushing hard to get some loans, because at the time you could get what's called a Sybil loan, which was a low interest loan from the government to keep you, to keep you going or grow you. Because always in adversity, there is always a positive. So the positive is businesses were failing, which is sad for the people that are failing, but it's an opportunity for the people that can make it work. So during COVID, got 2 loans, one against my house, one just a Sybil's loan. And then we opened Blakeney and Holt in very quick succession. And then I opened a third one, Woodbridge, just after that. So we basically grew very, very quickly. We then outgrew Darsham, believe it or not. So then I rented so Darsham, just to give you an idea of the space, is 2,000 square feet. So that was feeding at the time 6 cafes and struggling. So we rented another 2,000 square feet about 10 minutes away. We then basically moved our bread and savoury products there and kept our sweet products at Darsham. And that's how we ran for a period of time, knowing that we would outgrow that. But I was looking for a different unit, but I couldn't get it at the time. Eventually, an 11,000 square foot unit came up, and then we moved all of our bakers and our savoury in there, kept our sweet in Darsham, and then continued growing the business. So we opened Beccles, and Beccles was our first punt at what I call a mini Magpies. So when you're building your business, whatever business you're doing, but if you're doing bricks and mortars and doing cafes, if you're doing food, the kitchen costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
In simple terms, not just kitting it out, stainless steel, all the rest of
Well, I
it, but
guess
also
thousands, isn't it? It's just crazy.
rough cost is about 100 grand a time.
Yeah.
And then you need 2 chefs to run it, because when the chef's got his 2 days off, or their 2 days, or she's got her 2 days off, you need somebody to cover it. So you then employed 2 chefs. Well, 2 chefs cost you at the time probably 80 grand. They probably cost now closer to 100 grand by the time you've done pensions, NI, all the rest of it. So we were the way I've grown the business is through a mixture of loans and a revolving loan with a supplier. So the loans then, at one point, we were a bit tight on cash. I mean, very squeaky. There are times that I have really, really worried about, how we're going to be able to manage it or not manage it. And you beg, steal, borrow, whatever you need to do. I found some more money, let's put that in, or whatever it might be. So we opened Beccles as our first mini Magpies, and my logic was it was a small estate agent, and I mean really small. So we've got 8 covers in there, 10 tops.
Okay. Yeah.
And I said, we're not putting a kitchen in it. Well, you can have a warm sausage roll, or you can have a sandwich, or you can have a croque monsieur, or whatever it might be. But literally, that's all you can have. And then you've got the normal display, which is the sweets. You've got the normal coffee. And that week cost us £40,000 to do. To give comparison, to do Framlingham recently cost us £300,000, and we haven't finished. So that's the scale difference. Don't get me wrong, 40,000 is not normal. I've done a mini at 170 as well, but 40 was cheap and cheerful.
Yeah.
But it worked, and it's probably our most successful site on a margin basis, not on a turnover. It'll turn over about £400,000. Our average site turns over about 1.1 million, to give you a feel.
Really? Wow.
So, 400,000 is small, but I only need 3 staff to run it. They run it 7 days a week, and I have no problems. Very, very simple. So from a cash flow point of view, it brought cash in. So on the back of that, we've now got a mixture of mini Magpies and full Magpies. So we've got 6 full Magpies, 4 minis. And that gives us the opportunity, we'll do some expansion next year. When we're looking around, if it's, I'd love to have a full Magpies here, but I can't get it here. But that shop would lend itself to become a mini, and it's in the right footfall, right location. Just make it a mini.
Yeah.
A lot easier.
Yeah. Go on. Expansion can be very risky. As you said, you put one of the loans on your house. When is the right time for expansion? What did you see where you were like, yes, this is the time?
So at the time of COVID, lots of businesses falling down. So therefore, 2 things are happening in the marketplace, if you think about it. One is they may have assets that they want to get rid of at a cheap price because they just want money. Sounds harsh, but that business is harsh as well. Secondly, landlords want security because the last thing they want is an empty building. So at the time, if you're in a crisis, the landlord will accept a better deal for you if you're saying, I'll do a 5-year or a 10-year deal. And we do all our deals at 10 years with a 5-year break clause. So I'm taking a punt of 5 years, whatever happens.
Yeah.
It normally takes about 1 year to 2 years to pay back your money anyway. So, 5 years is reasonable. We have a very simple model. So the model is basically, it's either coastal and it's second homeowners, private schools, or if it's in a town, it's got to have a greengrocers, florists, butchers, ironmongers, or some combination of them, because that means they'll support indies and locals as opposed to national chains.
Interesting. Yeah.
A very simple model, but actually it works because you know that the
Yeah.
locals will support it. So that's when you know the opportunity is. So if you take at the moment, a lot of businesses are struggling now. Rachel Reeves is going to hit, doesn't matter who the chancellor is, but unfortunately it's Rachel Reeves
Yeah.
gets the toss on her head. So basically, she's going to come back and try and get another 30 billion pounds out of wherever she's going to get it from. Now, reality is business will get a hit on the back of that, whether it's VAT, whether it's they don't support the rates again, or whether it's corporation tax, or whatever she decides to go for, because she's trying to keep a manifesto promises, but she'll go for something. Then that will put the final pressure on businesses that are struggling from cash flow or from not footfall or whatever. And then that's the opportunity. So I know next year is the year to start looking. So this year we used as a year of consolidation because all of hospitality got hit with the last budget really hard. We set ourselves in a good position on the back of that. So we're now in a really good position going forward.
Sure.
Should the opportunity come up.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Raising capital has been a big part of Two Magpies' journey. Would you say that?
I would, but I haven't done it necessarily in traditional ways.
Okay. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, of course I can. So there's several ways you can raise capital. You start in your business up, you go to friends and family, lend us some money, put it in, I want to start a business. You may have some assets because you've gone down a corporate route, so you'll either remortgage your house, sell your house, downsize, get some cash, put that in. You can take loans on the business, providing the business has got the cash flow to service the loans. So your banks will support you, but you've got to jump through a lot of hurdles. And the bank, I've got Lloyds, they've been fairly supportive. I've got no issues. I've got a great relationship manager, etc. But we do what I've got as a revolving loan system is, sorry, I don't know, that's popped up on yours, is a thing called Libris. So Libris basically look at your card take, because 90% of our cash taken, or not cash, but our money taken is by card, 10% is cash. So they look at your card takings for the previous year and say we took £9 million last year. They know what we need to run. They look at our profit and loss to make sure we actually make money, so we are generating cash. And then they will do a loan that you agree. So I loaned £600,000 last year, or the very beginning of last year. And that was to do Framlingham and also finish Walpole, our central bakery. They then take a percentage every day of your card take. So say I took £100, I'll get £93.50 back in my bank account, and they take £6.50. And that £6.50 then pays off the loan and the interest. So they're paying it off on a daily basis all the way through. When you get to 50% paid off, so I'm currently 80% paid off on my current loan, they come back to you and go, well, if you want another 400 or 500,000, we're ready, because they know you're a good payer.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, maybe not, because it's slightly more expensive than bank rates. But if you've got the cash flow going in your business, it's safe. Other ways of doing it are factoring, so you can look at your stock and people will do factoring against your stock. They'll do it against your assets, asset finance. There's loads of ways of doing it. You've got to do what's comfortable for you that you think you can survive on.
Yeah.
The advantage of the Libris for me is if your take drops, so it suddenly floods it for 2 months and your take's down against where it is, they still take the 6.5%. They've got a minimum level they take to, but their minimum level is nothing. It's very small. So from my point of view, you can actually then say, look, the market's changed. This is what happened. They're okay. It just takes longer to pay back the loan. So that's what we do.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Sort of tailing off this then, what is the main difference in skill between just founding a company and actually growing it and scaling it?
Well, there are loads of single shops out there in terms of, they used to call them mama and papa shops, or I don't know what they call them, but single operators.
Yeah.
They're not a brand. They're not a group or whatever. I would say we're now a brand. So you scale up to a certain size. So founders are people that want to have a go at stuff. So I know loads of founders that have found several businesses but failed. I've done personal stuff in the background where I've done businesses and they've failed. That's part and parcel of, let's do this. Oh, it's not worked, fine. But that's just weighing up the risk. How much do you want to lose? That's the question. In terms of scaling up is you do need to have financial skills. You do, or at least have somebody who's got financial skills that can explain them to you in simple English so you can follow it. You do need also to have a feel for the market you're in. You really do. So there's no point in me selling shoes or handbags. I don't know the market. I would learn the market, but what you would look at is what your competitive sets are. Is there a gap in the market you can fill? Have you got a USP? What's your unique selling point? So ours is everything's made by hand, and we use the best local, or we use the best worldwide ingredients. So that's our USP, which the customer knows.
Yeah.
And that's what they're buying into. So, a loaf of sourdough is £5.15. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Go to supermarkets, if you want to pay £2 for a sourdough in the supermarket, it's a completely different market. But everybody drinks coffee because the coffee culture. So 25% of our sales are hot drinks, predominantly coffee. So we still sell a lot of coffee. We use Old Press, which is a really good brand from London. It's actually from New Zealand, but they've got a roastery in London. And most of our London set, they quote no Old Press straight when they go, oh, you've got Old Press, fantastic. Let's have that. So I'm not really answering your question. I've kind of gone around about it. The founder could be one site and can grow it. You'll know that from business studies. Founders normally get the initial phase going. Second generation normally then grow it to whatever. Third generation normally ruin it. Very few third generation families.
Yeah.
Because third generation are like, oh, I'll just live off this, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I'm the founder of the group. I didn't find the very first bakery. I've grown the rest of the bakery group without question. My kids have been involved, whether they'll get involved again or not, probably, hopefully. And then they'll be the second phase to take it to the next level because, you've only got so much energy.
Yeah, sure. If you're a young founder and you're looking, because you hear learn the market a lot and you should know your market, how can you actually start learning what your market is as a young founder if you started a business and want to scale it now?
Okay, so look at your competition. Simple. Go on websites. Actually walk the streets. If you're doing bricks and mortar and you want to put it somewhere, literally walk the streets at various times of the day just to understand. Have a look. Is there actually footfall walking past? There's some fantastic places, but I've looked at Bury St Edmunds several times, but there's only 2 places you'd be in Bury St Edmunds. Otherwise, it's no point. Great, you've got a place in Bury St Edmunds, but it's on the wrong street and nobody walks past it.
Okay, so actually getting out there, yeah.
Irrespective of your name, you might get a bit of draw, but it's not enough draw to make it viable. So, knowing your market is that, knowing what your competition is like, knowing your competition pricing.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you going to undercut? Are you overcutting? What's your point of difference for your competition? So, Costa, Starbucks, all the rest of them. What is the difference between any of them? Because actually, they're all synonymous with one thing for me. It's just you go and have a coffee. They've all got a variety of bakes.
Yeah.
There's no distinguishing feature. The coffee tastes different. So that's it.
Yeah. You mentioned some challenges that this particular industry faces. You mentioned the budget and stuff. So what challenges does this industry face? And just talk me through some of those.
Okay, so the biggest challenge, there's actually 3 challenges. Labor per se. So labor, people very rarely choose to go into hospitality. It's a fall into job. So I've graduated, I haven't got a job yet. I'll go and be a barista somewhere. I'll go and be a front of house, or I'll go and be a back of house. Might end up loving it and great. Or it's just a stopgap. They're staying in the local area and they're happy in the local area, and they just want a steady job that's 9 till 5 or 8, whatever the hours are. So you've got it's not a job people choose to go into. Once they get into it, how many times have you been into a coffee shop and you get something? Is the person smiling at you when they're serving you? Are they happy to be serving you? They're not.
Quite infrequently, yeah.
Very rarely.
Unless it's McDonald's, and they're forced to smile and say, "Can I help you with anything else?" But basically, so how do you build a culture with them that people then think that actually I want to be part of this culture? So we do a weekly email to all our staff, or the ones that sign up. I think we've got 170 odd signed up. We share all our numbers. We've got some values we've built into the business, but they're soft values. They're not hard values. We don't rip people's heads off for doing things wrong. So I've had one of our bakers managed to ruin several £1,000s worth of croissants. They're still working for us.
Yeah.
They've not, it's like, let's learn from our mistakes. If they do it 3 times, that's a different conversation, but it's about, so staff, first of all, they don't choose to come into hospitality. Secondly, if you look at the broader hospitality market, it was predominantly driven by European Union. So when we left the EU, we lost a load of workers. We didn't, not in Suffolk and Norfolk, because actually we don't tend to have that in Suffolk and Norfolk. If you take London or Manchester or cities, they tend to lose that. So hospitality per se lost hundreds and hundreds of people. And then you're trying to backfill with people that actually don't want to do the job because they don't want to be in hospitality. Secondly, I'm not saying they're scared of hard work. That sounds a bit harsh, but actually, sometimes they're tough days. We can have, to give you an idea, in January, my turnover will be £650,000 across all the businesses. In August, it was just under 1.3 million. So it doubles. Now, you don't double your staff up because it doesn't stack up. And also they trip over themselves. So actually they work harder in summer than they work in winter, without question. But in winter, they're like, can we clean a bit? Because they're a bit bored because they've got nothing to do. Because that's, who's going to go out on December the 8th? It's not the same footfall. So it's how you keep the staff motivated. So staff's the biggest issue from that point of view. Skill set, we spend 2 days onboarding before somebody can actually do anything, and then we'll train them in the relevant job. Because if you look at East Anglia, we're also surrounded by a lot of water. My pool to pull labour from is a bit limited.
Yeah.
So because I'm limited on where I can pull my labour from, you'll take somebody, you go, okay. And then we have to train them from scratch. So it's slightly different. Depends where your hospitality is. If you're in London or Manchester, you've got a bigger pool to pull from, but you might have language barriers. There's all sorts of things. I ran a pan-European salad business for a while. We had 13 different languages.
Really?
You can translate all your health and safety in a different language.
That's a bit tricky, isn't it?
It's a bit of a nightmare.
You do all your training in a different language.
Difficult.
Yeah.
So labour without question, your biggest issue. And to give you an idea, we've got, I think, 5 vacancies in our business. So we're fairly good, and we've got some long stayers in our business. I think we treat our staff reasonably well. I pay above minimum wage. They have a Christmas party. Blah blah blah, all these sorts of stuff. But try and look after the staff, because that's your most important asset. If you can get them right, don't get me wrong, we get some that are wrong, but get them right in the main.
Sure. Okay.
Secondly, if you take the budget, oncoming problems coming towards, the national insurance increase and the massive jump in wages, and I've always been proud that we've paid above minimum wage. Now, it might sound silly, 18 to 20-year-olds, we paid well above what the minimum wage was, and then suddenly they hiked it up by 16%. It doesn't sound much. I've got 100 staff between 18 and 20. That one group alone cost over £100,000 on their pay award.
Yeah.
Now, we made £450,000 last year, so 25% of that's been wiped out by one group of workers, without national insurance, without rates, without utilities, without whatever it might be. And you tend to get very little support. So I'd say they're the 2 biggest issues. So the government interference, not interference, but in terms of they see you as something that you can keep trying to pull money out of. In reality, if VAT was dropped, and there's enough think tanks on this, if VAT was dropped 20%, if VAT was dropped across the UK, sales would increase, the revenue take for the treasury would be increased, but it's an easy lever to pull.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. How do you navigate all these challenges then? Because they're very, very stressful, it seems.
Yeah, no. So the other thing about growing a business is you don't have all the team in place to start off with. So you are MD, chief exec, whatever you want to be. You're also the finance director. You're also part HR.
Wearing lots of hats. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as you grow, you can backfill some roles. So I've got a really good, strong leadership team now. I've got an ops director. She's good. Yaz. I've got a really strong team across the piece from buying to planning, everything. But you have to backfill those roles. And that's a big on cost to take on board unless you've got the cash coming through. So that's about just scaling up right in short term. So I've made sausage rolls. I've made croissants. I've made bread. I've driven vans. I've been in the kitchen for 4 weeks, all those kind of things. You've got to be willing to do all of that. But then also your day's finished. You know, you're a normal worker now, your day's finished, but then you've got your job to do, which is actually what are the numbers looking like? What's the categories looking like? What's the wastage looking like? All those kind of things.
Sure. Okay. If you are to walk down any high street where there is a Two Magpies Bakery, it will be one of the busiest cafes. What do you think sets it apart from its competitors on the high street?
Okay, I genuinely think that is, I'll say the staff. We put a lot of effort into our staff, so I get loads of customers coming up. Don't worry, I get complaints as well, but I get loads of customers saying, they're superb, they're really good. So we're one of our values is community, and community is about being welcoming. And, you know, the other week we had 2 members of staff, they hadn't seen one of their customers for a while, so they actually went round to the house with a goodie bag for them, checked they were all right, and actually they haven't been unwell. So that's a slight difference because actually I can't see somebody from, I'm not having a go at Costa, Starbucks, or any other named high street coffee brand going, I'll go out and check where Steve is because he's not been in for a few days.
Yeah.
It's just he's not been in for a few
sure.
days. So that's one bit. And then secondly is the range. So we do about 80 products at any one time. It's colourful, it's tasty. We do a range of gluten-free, vegan, and it's the best quality. It's made by hand. So sometimes, guess what? That cookie doesn't look the same as that cookie because they've been made by somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just real ingredients as well, I'd say.
Yeah,
I mean, if you go to
100%.
most like Costa's, Starbucks, you look what actually is in your toasty or in your cookie. It's
I recognise
it's a
half the
bunch of
stuff too.
chemicals.
Well, usually wrapped in plastic and it's got a long shelf life.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't push it enough probably. Ultra processed foods, we do no ultra processed foods. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. We use a vegan block for vegan food. That's probably got some ultra processing going on, but reality where we can, we don't.
Yeah.
You know, bread contains 4 ingredients. Simple. That's it.
Yeah.
It
When the
won't
supermarket
anywhere else.
Quite a lot more.
Yeah. Don't want to look at the ingredient label on a
No, you don't.
supermarket packet of bread, do you?
So,
No.
You mentioned
Just-
complaints there. I'm quite interested how you react to complaints.
it's and I'm harking back to COVID. In COVID, we were like second to the nurses being thanked for being open and they could get a coffee and they could get whatever they wanted to get. I think customer expectations are higher in terms of what they expect and quicker in what they expect as a response time. You know, you're not allowed to have weekends off. So, and the routes they come in by is quite interesting. You'll get your usual TripAdvisor, Google. You get people that write to you. You'll get people that come into the store. You'll also get people that message you on Messenger. And you've got to be able to reply to all of those, and Instagram. So you've got to be able to respond to all of those different channels that are coming in within a reasonable time frame. So any that come to me, I respond to immediately. Doesn't matter what day, you know, as long as I'm not asleep, but as long as I'm awake, they'll get a response immediately. Even if I can't answer the question, I will. Most of my team are the same because actually that's the bit. If somebody's really, really hacked off, they've had a bad experience. They really have had a bad experience. It could be, I don't know, somebody's burnt something, but they've not really, or they've tried to hide it, whatever it might be, or the coffee was too cold, or it's too milky, or whatever the combinations. You know, you're going to get these problems because we're making thousands of transactions a day. Then it's about your response. So if you go back and respond, most people want an instant response. If you respond quickly, most people calm down. because they're going, actually, I've had a response. I really appreciate the fact you've, and then you're apologetic and you'll investigate it. You'll get the odd one that will be looking for recompense and they want, I want vouchers. You'll always get some that try it on. There's a round one going around, which is, I don't know if I said this word on here, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think I've had over the years probably 10 letters of finding a pubic hair in product, which is obviously not true, but because they're trying it on because they want to get something out of it.
Yeah.
So you can gauge. Most people are genuine because they'll actually go, I'm writing to you rather than putting it onto email. I'm putting it on email rather than putting it onto TripAdvisor because I just think you should know. Because I think they respect that we actually try to get it right, and we will make mistakes.
Sure.
If you would go back to your 20-year-old self and had to give yourself some advice, what would that advice be?
Well, honestly, I'd probably
Yeah.
save better than what I did do when I was 20-year-old because I was a terrible student. I was always in debt, overdraft to me, whatever. Look, 20-year-old, you've got nothing to lose by having a punt at whatever you want to have a punt at. You haven't got a house to lose. You haven't got whatever to lose. So just go for it. Worst comes to it, worst you fail. Learn from your mistakes. And do learn from your mistakes. Don't keep doing the same thing thinking it's going to change because if the market's not ready for it, the market's not ready for it. Or if the market doesn't want it, doesn't want it. But I would probably save a bit better if I'm being honest, have a bit more cash behind me at that moment in time. And the risk taking, I think risk taking should be done all the time. I really do.
Nice.
If you if you had to say where Two Magpies was going next in say 5 years' time, where would you say it's going to go?
So originally, when I got involved in the business, I said I wanted to get it to 30 to 50 sites. Last year, I promised the team a year of consolidation, partly on the back of budget, what was hitting us. And we just bought a business called Hilton Macarons. So I've kept that as a separate business, but it joins in nicely with ours. It's gluten-free and it's great for weddings. So it works for weddings as well. And we do a lot of wedding cakes. That's going really, really well this year. Next year, I'm already saying we're opening a couple of sites. We're just getting back on the track. So I've been in business. I joined in 2018, late 2018. So say 7 years. 7 years, we've grown by 9 sites. I think we should be able to grow by another 20 sites in the same period next time because we know what we're doing now. It's not formulaic. That sounds a bit harsh, but if you look at our original, when you're doing a site, and this your listeners will go through this if they're doing a bricks and mortar site, pieces of duct tape on the floor to say this is where the till's going to be, this is where the counter's going to be, this is where, and then you build it. And we had carpenters coming in, and then you're like, this is just nonsense. It costs so much. We do pre-made units now. We drop in. We look the same across most of our sites, but the buildings are different, so that lends itself so you can make them special. So if you take Framlingham, it's an old bank, so it's got massive windows, massive ceilings. If you take Blakeney, it was an old church room, so we literally took a wall down, well, a wooden wall down, but moved it to the back and created this massive cathedral window effect in the top. So, but everybody knows the Magpie because it's got the blue, it's got the grey, a little bit of red. So what we try and do is then you mirror that kind of approach all the way around so they know what they're going into a Magpie.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. That's been really, really useful.
Not a problem. If anybody wants to have a shout, it's steve@twomagpiesbakery.co.uk. Happy to answer questions.
Thanks a lot. Amazing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.